Hello, everybody. Justin Stivers, owner of the Probate Law Firm here. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Stivers Show. And so today, I'm just taking a little bit of time to talk about probate and what documents, what information you will likely need uh, in order to get the process started. So obviously, losing a loved one is difficult, and having to go through a legal process called probate in order to transfer assets and receive an inheritance is difficult. And now you possibly, hopefully not, but possibly have fighting siblings as well. And so most people, when they contact us at the probate law firm, they're really, understandably overwhelmed, not sure where to begin, not sure what they need, not sure, they're sometimes I think almost so overwhelmed that they think they need all of this information before they can even get started, which is often not the case. And actually, because there can be some time sensitive things, actually can be detrimental to their case. So this, I think will be relatively short. There's just a few things that are necessary. Again, some of them can wait. And I often encourage people, let's go ahead and get started. Let's not wait until you have everything. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. But probably most of these things will be necessary before you can complete and possibly start the case. So I'm going to talk about what those things are. There's about five different things that I think are necessary. So we'll talk about what those five things are, and then talk a little bit about how you can find that information if you don't have it. So number one, this probably no shock here. You will need a copy of the death certificate. Um, this is probably, you're going to have to order it depending on when the person passed away and where they passed away and all of those things. It could take a little bit of time, but often it's going to be the attending physician, the funeral home director, um, something like that. Someone like that is probably going to be the one. You're going to give them all of your information if you're the informant, if you're the one notifying that person of their death. And then you're going to have to order it from in Florida. We have what's called vital statistics. That's where we're going to order the death certificate. Depending on your situation, you might order it directly from the hospital or from the funeral home director. For probate purposes, you're going to want to order what's called the short form, meaning that there is no cause of death on there. It doesn't say how the person passed away. For probate in Florida, we actually have to use the short form. We can't have the cause of death on there. I generally recommend you want to get a couple copies. Us, the probate attorney in the court, is only going to need one. They're going to need the original, but you might need originals for other things. So it might make sense to go ahead and order a couple copies. The long death certificate, the long form, has the cause of death on it. You may need that one. Sometimes you'll need that, most commonly for life insurance policies. If you're trying to collect a life insurance policy, they want to know how the person passed away. Um, for example, they want to know, was it a suicide? Because there might be clauses in that policy that says you can't get paid if that was the cause of death. So there's a couple different reasons they might want that. But for probate, we're going to need the short form. Pretty simple, pretty easy to get. Um, we order a copy as well. It normally takes 15 days or so to get if we need it. So that's for sure one you're going to need. Number two, you will need, if there was a will, if there was a trust, if there were addendums, amendments to either of those documents, we want to find the original, not a photocopy, not a scanned copy. We need the original copy. That being said, if all we have is a copy, we can use it, but we really, 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 really want the original one. It just makes it more difficult, harder to prove. But again, find what you can find. We will need that. If you believe the person who passed away did in fact have a will, you're going to have to find a copy of it. It's not going to be good enough just to say, okay, I think, my dad had a will, but I'm not sure where it is. We have to have a copy of it. Again, we want the original, but if we can't find the original, we'll go with a copy and kind of make a decision from there what our options are and what we can do. This is one of the documents that I think people really struggle with because there is not, at least in Florida, there's not really a will database that we're going to use that's going to keep copies of wills. Again, a lot of times people will do a will themselves. They put it in their house, they put it in a drawer somewhere, and he or she doesn't tell anybody about the will, we're not going to know. We're not going to even know that it existed. So your best place to search is their house. Hopefully they gave you a copy. Hopefully the person who passed away told you a little, maybe told you where it was. But you're going to have to search their house for it. If they have a safety deposit box, it's possible that it's in there. Again, that's going to make things a little bit complicated because we might not know what the will says, and you go through all this process, steps, and we open the probate only to find out that that person didn't leave anything to you, or it's different than what you thought. So, but if there is a safety deposit box, that might be a place. I always recommend my clients don't put it in a safety deposit box for that exact reason. You want to have it somewhere safe, somewhere easy to find, and let somebody know where it is. The last, again, if you've searched, if there is no safety deposit box, you've searched their home, you may get lucky. And if you know that that person had maybe had an attorney or had some relationship with an attorney, or maybe you think they went and saw an attorney at some point for, anything, but maybe specifically for planning a will, contact him or her. A lot of attorneys, for example, we keep electronic copies for most of our clients up to a certain point, not indefinitely, but up to a certain point. And so they might have an electronic copy. Some wills that were drafted way back when, the older wills, sometimes I have seen where the attorneys have kept the originals. And so you might have an attorney that has the original. But that would maybe, again, if you know that they have an attorney and you can't find the will, you might follow some breadcrumbs to find out. Again, the will is important because, again, if there is a will, it could say something different than what you think. And so we want to know at the very beginning, if you think you're getting the house, but there's a will that says somebody else is getting the house, that's obviously going to change things drastically. So we want to try to find that. A lot of times people generally know. But if someone tells me, oh, I think he had a will, but I can't find it, I give them these suggestions. I say, hey, contact the attorney, look around their house, safety deposit box. And if nothing shows up, then it's a pretty safe bet that we're either not going to find the will or there isn't a will. So that's the next one we want to try to find. The next two kind of go hand in hand, but we want to try to list all of the assets and all of the creditors. So we want to come up with a list of, did the person who passed away, did he or she have a bunch of bank accounts? And if they did, do we know where those bank accounts are at? And do we know a balance? Can we figure out how much was there? So did they have bank accounts? Did they have a life insurance policy? Did they have any investment accounts, 401ks, retirement accounts? Again, different types of insurance policies, anything like that, savings, checking. We need that information because, again, that might make a decision as to whether or not we even need to do a probate, right? And I get calls somewhat regularly where someone will say, hey, my mom passed away. I think she had a bunch of accounts, but I don't know where they are. Well, it's almost impossible for any attorney really, to just know and find out. Again, there's not really a database that we can look into to find out what accounts that person had. Just not We're not going to be able to do that. And until a probate is open and we have someone named as a representative, we're not going to be able to call Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, or whatever, because they're not going to speak with you until you're named as the representative. And you may not want to spend the money to do a probate, and then all of a sudden you become named as representative and you find out that that person did not have any bank accounts anywhere. So the options are really, you could potentially, look at hiring a private investigator, which, again, expensive and not always super beneficial. pros and cons to that. I rarely have a client who, unless they really know that they're really confident that there were bank accounts, they're most likely not going to hire a private investigator. The second thing, though, that I would say is you're just going to have to follow the breadcrumbs, see if they were getting statements sent to their house, see if you can, if possible, depending on the situation, maybe you start forwarding their mail to your house. Um, those are, that's really the best place to start. A lot of times people have some sort of idea of what types of bank accounts they had. They'll, maybe it was an older person and you were kind of taking care of them and you're familiar with their finances, or you know what type of work they did. You knew if they were working at a bigger company which has a retirement plan or whatnot. So you kind of have to follow, again, I keep saying it, but you kind of have to follow the breadcrumbs just to see what they have, and just try to look for documentation. It's again, if you've lost somebody and you just think that they might have had bank accounts, it's a very tough, that's very tough to just go off and start calling every single bank. Because again, you'd have to start the probate first to get named as representative, or else the banks won't speak with you. So start with the mail. That's really the best thing, best option. If he's got a couple bank accounts and you know about them and it's worth doing the probate because there's enough money there or whatnot. Okay, well then now we're going to do the probate. We'll get you named as representative, and then maybe we'll start calling some other banks. But you'd want to know from the very beginning more or less how much is there and know that there is in fact money there. You also want to find the creditors. So you want to find out, did this person have, did they owe a bunch of money to a credit card company, American Express, Visa, whatnot? Did they owe a bunch of money to hospitals? Did they have judgments and liens and all that sort of stuff out against them? Did they owe child support? Those are the things you want to know. Not as critical. Again, that's not going to necessarily make our decision as to whether or not we'll go forward with the probate, but it helps us just kind of come up with a plan that makes sense. Because again, if this person, was a heavy spender, very much in debt, had, $100,000 in credit card debt, and they only had, $1,000 to their name in savings, maybe we're going to make a decision that it's just not going to be worth it to do it. We may still do it, but it helps us make that decision. So again, you're going to get this information most likely from mail. That's probably where you're going to get a lot of this information. And then lastly, the big piece here is we're going to want to know certain family members and contact addresses for them. And this is where I think this gets probably the most messy, is because unfortunately a lot of probates that we do or handle or see, there's usually maybe not full-blown fighting, maybe not, people aren't angry necessarily with each other to the point of filing lawsuits and fighting and everybody having their own attorney, but there might be just some animosity, some anger, some resentment that's built up over the years or whatnot, and you guys just can't get along. You just can't talk. You don't really want to talk. You don't want to notify them. I get all of that. Depending on the situation, depending on the relationships, we might not have to notify everybody, but we might have to, if your mom and dad died and you've got three siblings and there is no will, so all three of you are going to inherit whatever mom and dad had, we're going to have to notify the other two siblings. If you're the only child and there's a bunch of different aunts and uncles, we probably are not going to have to notify them. So it's really dependent on your situation and who's involved and who's going to inherit things, if there's a will, all that sort of stuff. But it helps us expedite the process. So again, I tell clients and potential clients, don't wait until you have all of the information of who all the heirs are and everything. But we do want to have kind of we don't need to wait for their addresses, but we want to have a good picture of that. We want to know who is going to be involved, because the last thing you want and that we want is to do a probate and then all of a sudden another kid shows up and you knew about him or her, but you just thought it didn't matter. And then we go to court and then they show up and they say, wait, where's my, 50%, which, somewhat surprisingly does happen. So you want to try to figure all of that out and provide that to your attorney, provide that to us. up front so that we can make the best plan. So those are, again, it's maybe sounds like a lot of information. You don't need it before you actually get started and start drafting everything. You will need all of this information at some point, but the most common are going to be the death certificate, the will and the trust, if there is any. We want to know where the assets are, banks, amounts, account numbers if we can. We want to know if there's any creditors, who they are, how much is owed, and we want to know who all the heirs are and beneficiaries and family members, and we probably want to know addresses as well. All of those things are going to help, kind of speed up the process and help you have a smoother and just more efficient probate altogether. So hope you guys found that useful. We've got a lot of information on our website at probatefirm.com, or if want to schedule a strategy session with us, 305-456-3255. Thank you all, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Take care. Bye.